Hey guys,
What's up, people? We are live. Welcome to IGDC. Welcome to this talk by Josh, and he is going to be talking about how you can get to the top in a tech role in the game industry in India. Josh is a very old friend of mine. He was with me at Vancouver Film School back in like 2008, 2009, and we worked together at Game Loft. So I'll tell you a really quick introduction. So Josh is the CTO, which you might not know, is a Chief Technical Officer of Hammerplay Studios in Chennai. Now Joshua's journey to game development has been through a lot of experimentation, different disciplines. But you know what? I'll let Josh take over and talk about himself. So take it away, Josh.
hey guys, thanks for the intro, man. Yeah, we've been through crazy times, me and Rahul. We know each other for almost 12 years now. That's more than 12 years, in fact, around 13 years. So yeah, I mean, when he said that, Josh, would you like to give a talk regarding this one? Since you have made it, I was in fact surprised. I told him, "What do you mean you have made it, dude? You are the CTO, dude. That means you have made somewhere." Because that's the thing, right? When you're in the industry for quite a while, you don't eventually stop caring about the titles that you have, and probably worry more on what products you want to make, right? So yes, I hope you guys are having a lot of fun in the IGDC. I wish I could meet all of you guys in person, but hopefully next year I think we'll all meet in person and we'll all sync up. And my hopes in this talk is once you, by the end of this session, you have something to take away. Before that, I think there's one poll that I would like you guys to fill. If you can go to the polls tab and could you fill that one up? I will have an idea of who are I'm who are all the kind of people that are in the audience, and I will cater my talk and my questions based on that one. Okay, so I'll give you like probably like 15 to 30 seconds to fill up the poll, and we'll get started. Okay, cool. I'm looking at the poll right now. Okay, so I hope that most of you are. I'm looking at the audience tab. I'm looking at a lot of students. Some are founders and some are even artists at this point. Um, I'll give you some heads up. This discussion will be more of technical topics. I'm not sure how much takeaway an artist would probably have from this talk, but a technical designer, a technical artist would have something to take away from this talk, right? Especially when there's so many interesting talks going simultaneously, right? Um, um, I really want you guys to have a good takeaway by the end of this talk. So make sure you fill the poll. I'll be looking at that poll, and I'm getting somewhere junior developers and 33% are students. Great guys. Welcome to the gaming industry as you guys are starting it out. So this is one of those poems that I love. It says it by Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. This is where he actually comes across two roads and then he wants to pick one as a career. And by the end of the poem, he says, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So there's this point of regression in this entire poem. Uh, that's the point, right? Wherever you take any decisions in your life, right, you don't know where you will end up to be. So there's sort of important where your trajectory is supposed to be. That's all we can actually hope for in any industry, for that matter, right? So take your time in your free time, read that poem. It's pretty nice. So I think once you guys are finished with the tone, I think I can get started, right? So what's the takeaway? I'll talk about the agenda of the talk, and if things aren't in your scope or what your expectations on this thing one, I would like you guys to like stick around till the Q&A session. I think the talk will be in a much less time, and we can talk and discuss during the Q&A session. I'll try to make the talk as short as possible so I can answer most of the questions for you guys, because each of you guys will have different questions, right? So let's talk less about how things were, about myself or about the industry. It's sort of not entirely fully applicable during the current time, right? Because how and when I started out, the industry has completely changed. So my experience alone in the stock wouldn't benefit any of you guys, right? So I'll talk less about my experience, and let's talk about how things were, and how things were in the past, and we'll talk about some hard skills and soft skills, and how you can observe patterns of how the industry is changing right now, both internationally and locally. And we'll have a deeper discussion on how the landscape is right now and how things are changing right now. Okay, if that's cool, let's get started, right? So my assumption here is for the crowd is that you love to code, right? All of you guys love to code. You wanted to code to begin with and enjoy solving problems regardless of job titles. So this talk is for the long run, right? This is a trajectory. That means I assume that you guys are already invested in the game industry and want to stay in this game industry for the long run, right? Like any other job, this is sort of an investment that you guys need to put that time and effort to reach and reap the benefits of any job titles. I have seen so many students, so many developers, even experienced veterans ones, even after 8 years, they realize I don't want to code, I don't want to do this job for the rest of my life, right? So if that's not you in person, stick around for the end of the session. So hopefully I would persuade why this is a good field for you to be in. So that's my assumption. When you guys are here, I assume that you guys want to move up the ladder and code, and you love coding and you love problem solving in general, right? So that's my assumption that you guys are here at this moment, right? So let me make it worthwhile, this entire talk for you guys. So moving on, right? So we'll see how things were in the past. That means 2 decades ago. I'm not going to go back to the 90s. 90s was sort of crazy times, and I was a kid back then. So my opinions and my experiences wouldn't apply during that time. So 2 decades ago, if you want to be a programmer in the gaming industry, all you need to know is C++. That's all you need to know. If you can just go to any gaming company and say, "Hey, I finished my bachelor's in computer science. I want to get hired," and they will just ask you, "Do you know pointers?" They'll have this sort of basic math questions. They will ask you some vector math questions, some geometry questions, some graphics questions, and that's about it. You're already hired. And once you're already in there, they have their own set of engines. In early 2000, Unreal was a closed system. If you want to license Unreal Engine during that time, you'd probably pay $1 million, right? That's how things were in the past. And then there was this entire another contrast of things that was going on the other space, which would be Flash games. If you guys have enjoyed playing Flash games during that time in early 2000s. And then there was this feature phones where you can play featured Java games during that time. So this was the thing back then. When you wanted to start out, you start inside a company, you learn the tech and move up the ladder during that time. So does that apply here at this point? Well, not really. Things have changed a lot. So early 2010s, right? By I think 2007 or six, Unity came to the picture. It was a Mac only engine back then. And this is where the landscape sort of started to change, right? Where you have Unreal Development Kit, I assume. It was made to the public, and you can start experimenting with AAA engines during that time. At the same time, we had smartphone explosion, right? We had iOS, Android, and every other game would be a runner game, regardless. People didn't know how to monetize properly, how they wanted to make games entirely workable. There was like pretty new engine. Unity was fairly new, and that when the explosion of indie developers came to the pictures. So the guys who started back then sort of benefited a lot because people didn't anticipate that change in the market. So when they jumped inside, they were reaping a lot of profits. Subway Surfers or any early game, Temple Run, all those games, right, did really well back then because they tried out something that was new and different, and the smartphone market boomed, and they also all benefited from that. So that's how things were in 2010s. Till I think even 5 years ago, it was still the same thing. And Unity was king for the last 10 years, right? And they still are, still Unreal and Unity still rule the market space. Um, so, how things are right now in 2020. So, we'll come back to this topic and we'll try to take what we have understood from the past. So, only when you start to see patterns, you can use that to your advantage and try out things differently for your success in this domain, right? So there's countless languages and there's countless frameworks right now. And if you guys have time, take a look at games from scratch, right? Games from scratch in YouTube. I think this fellow covers most of the engines that come out almost in a weekly basis. There should be, at least in my knowledge, at least 10 to 15 engines that are out there. So we'll continue why there's so many engines and should you learn them all to actually be successful in this domain. We'll discuss in the end of the talk, right? So before moving to this, so you understand how the landscape have changed, the past, the present, and possible future. So what do you need, right, to be successful, right? So let's focus on your hard skills, right? So this is your core engine. You need to oil them, continuously learn every weekend, try to learn something during the weekend. So that's a given, right? So hard skills are something on that you can be quantified. That's something that you put on your resume and people look at it like, okay, or your LinkedIn, they'll be like, okay, this guy knows this many stuff, right? This is your hard skills. So regardless of languages, right? You need to be incredibly strong in data structures, algorithms, and game math. This three never changes most of the time, right? Most of the time, these always remain since early programming. This hasn't changed at all. Then you need to be applied OOPS, right? When I say applied OOPS, a lot of people do know OOPS concepts. Whenever I ask any question in, say, what an inheritance is or a polymorphism is, people are giving textbook answers to most of the questions that I ask them. So when I say applied hoops, right, how does that actually apply to your game projects? That what it matters, right? So people need to also understand what is software engineering is and what design is. So these are like your hard ninja skills that you need to have. And keep up with the tech. There are new techs that's coming along. Sometimes it won't be successful, sometimes it will. Sometimes they fail. For example, ECS and dots especially in Unity right now, it's a relatively new tech and it doesn't come under the OOPS category. It's a whole new different approach to the problem. But how much you need to know that and how do you actually apply it in projects differs based on your projects. There are other techs that came and died without even us knowing. Something like reactive programming. I'm assuming some people still do use it, right? So this is your hard skills. And then there's this crossover knowledge that usually helps you. So try to learn design, right? You are not just going to cut out moving up the ladder just knowing your hard skills. Try to cross over your knowledge. It doesn't mean that you need to do those jobs. That means you need to have some knowledge over these topics. For example, you can be a technical artist. For example, if you're dealing with shaders, right, you need to understand what the artist want, right? What shaders do they want? So in that way, you need to sort of put yourself in their shoes or try to create a thing or two in art. Uh, Learn Photoshop or learn Blender in your free time, so you'll understand what the process for the artists are. So you need to have some sort of crossover knowledge at that point. So if you're a technical designer, when I'm saying technical designer, right, most of the time designers have very high expectations over the game, they because it's easier for them to write so many documentation and tell this is what the game should be, right? They'll just start writing an MMO, and a programmer wouldn't know how, like you guys know what the scale of the issue would be, right? So understanding design principles and talking in design principles to other disciplines, like this helps a lot. I would highly suggest any of you guys to do game jams in your time. So whenever you're doing game jams, right, that's when you sort of think more in design aspect, because you have less than 48 hours to 72 hours to figure out a game design, right? So you'll have more value. So try to make as much as prototypes if you guys want to step inside the technical designer role, right? You need to understand what the design aspect is. So then there's this whole new topic of how to be a producer, right? Understand what the roles of a producers are. Try to understand the business of things. So this way, people, you can talk in terms and not just close yourself inside a cubicle and say this is what I'm going to code, right? You'll understand the entire picture of how game development process goes, how monetization goes, and how the business of things work, right? So try to have crossover knowledge most of the time. I'm not saying that you need to be an artist, you need to be a designer, you need to be a producer. I'm saying that crossover knowledge always helps, and that's going to be moving up the ladder in any companies that you usually work in, right? Then this is also an expected thing. You need to have some sort of documentation, right? Since you're not the only guy who's working in a team, documentation is a must. So if you're coming to a lead position or a senior position, right, that is sort of an expected thing out of you, because other juniors will be working beneath you, and if you have already solved a problem, right, they need to know and been documented that they can just pick it up and solve the same issue. So that is sort of expected out of every programmers. Most of them don't do any documentation, right? So the other thing is, make sure your GitHub. I'm pretty sure there's other platforms that are famous along with this one, but make sure if your open source GitHub have multiple projects on them, so other people who look at it, or even potential clients who look at it, will go through your code, right? So make sure you sort of contribute to some other open source projects, or have some open source small games of some sort in your GitHub all the time. Me personally, whenever I'm working with any other clients or any other game developers, right, I immediately go and search for the GitHub and see how they have committed. So make sure you have a sparkling GitHub repos, right? That's more of your calling card than your LinkedIn most of the time. LinkedIn works for HRs, but if you're going to go for a technical round, a senior round, people would look at your GitHub most of the time. So now that you have your engine all polished and up and running, right? Let's move to the soft skills that you probably need to have. I'll just talk about the essentials during time. So first and foremost, don't be a dick, right? Be humble. Most of the developers that I have come across have this notion of superiority beneath them, uh, and they sort of show, because people do come to you to get their problem solved. I mean, you're the cornerstone. I wouldn't say cornerstone. I would say you're the funnel for the entire project, right? So everything has to go through you. Your code makes the game work, right? So it sort of gets to their head most of the time, and they be total dicks. In my experience, even back in, say, 10 years back, right? Even when I was starting out, I have seen some really amazing programmers. They're way better than who I am right now. But the thing is, they had attitude problems. And remember, guys, the gaming industry is incredibly small. People would eventually know who you are. So, one bad rep on your thing, on your behavior, on an attitude issue, it sort of goes around, right? People talk. So, like when you're starting out or you're trying to move up the ladder, don't be that person, right? So the second soft skills that I wanted to tell you is sometimes people, I know you all guys like writing fancy codes, the cleanest code possible, right? But by the end of the day, it doesn't solve the problem for the team, or it's not going to make a good product. Stop it, right? You're here to solve problems, not write fancy codes. Only another coder would probably look at your code and not even understand most of the time, but they'll know, oh my God, this code is so good looking, right? But good looking code doesn't necessarily mean that you have a good product in your hand. The third is I see this with most of the junior developers when they start out. They'll be like, I'm a Unity developer. No, there's no such thing as Unity developer. There's something called game developer, right? You don't have to be biased over certain texts. They change all the time. So some people even go to the extent of commenting out on YouTube, says that Unity sucks or Godot sucks or Unreal sucks. And there's like countless videos of Unreal versus Unity, right? So don't get caught up in all of those stuff and don't take them personally and redirect your team or the product based on your biased opinion about a tech. So that's pretty similar. Then ego, remove the ego from everything. So if you guys are moving up to be a senior position or a tech lead, some sort of person, sometimes they have this mentality of minions, you work for me. So you listen and do what I say, right? So most of the time it doesn't work. You have to work in a non-hierarchical matter whenever it comes to a team, right? Because you'll be drawing knowledge from everyone. So at least in my personal experience, I learn a lot from my juniors. Then I actually figure out if somebody's solving some problem for you, which you haven't encountered before, learn from them. Okay, that's super key. The next is communication. So if try to read the book called How to Make Friends and Influence People. There are some other books that actually help how to communicate, right? So you can be the best programmer out there, you can be the best product or game maker, right? But if you can't get your ideas across, it's pretty much useless, right? If you can't able to communicate to your designer or producer or other artist, or you can't influence them about your ideas, I mean, people are not going to look up to you at that point, right? You need to start talking. So this is the essential skill set that you need to have to at least make it to a good tech lead position or a senior developer position, right? I'm not saying that every CTO does have all of these traits, but at least this is the observation that I got from other proven CTOs or tech guys. Some, just to name a few, John Carmack, right? So let's move up to the other soft skills that you probably need to have to move up the ladder. Get out of your comfort zones. Okay, so if you guys are accustomed to an engine and you want to do only using that engine, stop it, right? You have to look what's best for the product and what's best for the company rather than what's best and comfortable for you. So in most of the cases, sometimes some games would probably take less time for you to do it in Unity than in Phaser, right? But you have to consider where the product is going and what platform these products are going. So you can't be comfortable and say, this is what I'm going to do. And the other comfort zones I usually encounter with most of the people is I'm all about work-life balance, right? But if you really want to push yourself, you can't say this is the amount of work that I will probably do per day. I won't do more than this. I know this is a controversial topic when I'm not saying that you guys are supposed to be overburned by overworking, right? I'm just saying, don't sit in the same comfortable job. Make sure your brain is constantly working whenever you're working on any of the products, right? And the other key thing that you need to do is you should be willing to do things that others are not able to do and are afraid to do. So in one of the scenarios that we had was us as an indie company, we have no investors whatsoever. We started as a servicing projects and then we moved making our own IPs. So when things were started out, we started with Unreal and Unity during that time. And this sudden requirement came from Geo and they asked us if we could make HTML5 games, right? And we told them outright we only work with Unity. We have no web developers in our studio and we have no knowledge in web. But the thing is, after a week, right, they came to us back again and they said all of them are Unity developers. Nobody is willing to port any games or make any games for Geo platform. So we just took a wild shot and we came out of our comfort zones and started experimenting with Phaser and started to port one game or two games in Geo. So that sort of gave us an entire edge. Even after some time, we were hitting like 10 million DAU users, and we were surprised because we wouldn't have made any of that possible in Play Store or iOS, right? So an opportunity always is around us, right? You need to just take those opportunities that others are not willing to take, right? And if others are not willing to take, you need to you also evaluate why they are not taking it, right? You just don't jump in everything that others are not doing. So the other thing is learn business side of things, form a good team to work with. That's pretty critical most of the time. So once you're in the industry, you sort of sync with certain people better than others. So if you're working with some sort of people like that, make sure you guys form a good team to work with and contribute to the community and also network as much as possible. So IGDC is a great place to network, and there's other platforms and discussion channels in Discord that you guys can actually talk over, right? So this is the soft skills that probably will get you all the way to technical lead or even a CTO this position, right? But you still need all those things that you are required to do in the past. Like soft skills needs to be there. Your hard skills need to be finely tuned, right? Um, so going above and beyond. This is a gray area, right? Success is subjective. So if somebody asks me if I'm successful, I would say not yet, but I'm in the trajectory. So is something that you would always pursue. It's not a destination that you probably reach, right? It's something that you need to constantly keep pursuing. Again, I would like to give John Carmack as an excuse or an example. This guy started ID Software. He's responsible for Quake, Doom, and modern 3D engine that we know of right this time. But right now he's working as an employee in Facebook, still trying to do what he wants to do, right? So I would say that is a success for me. Some people would say you need to be Bill Gates to be successful. So that is sort of a subjective matter, right? Salaries don't define success. Most of the salaries are sometimes incredibly bloated based on the evaluation of the company, right? So you wouldn't probably say this much salary is where a success is being drawn, right? I would say probably success would be being an indispensable person, right, for the company or the team. And if you know that you are indispensable, um, make sure you talk to your company, or if you're contributing more to your company or starting your own company with a group of people, make sure you guys have some sort of ESOP so that you also invest in the company and the company invests back in you, right? Make sure you guys have some sort of rev share or some sort. So these are like sort of the business guardrails that you guys need to understand, and it will help you on the long run and moving up to a higher business or a technical position right here. So I'll make sure you guys have this handle. I know this might be much more motivational talk and a trajectory, but most of these principles do apply, right? So moving forward, so let's talk about the current landscape. I'll make it quick. I think I reached 30 minutes and I'll open the floor for questions quickly. So how the landscape is right now is like, how do you go from here, right? Which path that you guys want to take right now? So there's two major divisions that we find out. The AAA area is still there, but in recent times, I think there's been this huge merging issues with not merging with the VFX industry. So if you guys have known, Unity just bought Veda Digital, the guys who made Lord of the Rings and all those stuff. And Unreal guys have been working with Industrial Lights and Magic for quite a while. So game developers are also heavily needed in the VFX space during this time. So there's this crazy blur that's been happening recently, especially with the GPU raycasting going on and real-time rendering coming to VFX right now. So that's a huge merging space that I'm looking forward for that space. And there's this app development phase, and there's so many new platforms that are coming up, more than iOS or Android for this matter, right? And there's this other merging tech that's been happening recently is web technologies are also merging with the gaming industry during this time. Mostly casual games and some are for presentation, VR and AR. But there's this app and games going together. So that's how the landscape is right now. Um, moving forward. So if you're going to take a AAA path, right, make sure you are in either Unreal or Unity. I think this is where the most of the VFX fun stuff is happening. Your core skills obviously should be C++ for Unreal and C Sharp and Python, right? I would say Python because if you're going to go down the VFX path, you're probably making tools for artists as well. So most of the technical artists do work in Python. So try to learn Python as well if you're going down this path. Shaded programming is the key, and you need to be super strong in vector math. So if you're going as a technical artist, right, where these things merge, you need to be incredibly strong in this topic. Learn other tools like Blender and Houdini. Houdini is getting really good rep during this time, and they're sort of looking at Unreal in most of the projects that they do. So like I said, Unity and Veta teaming up together in Unreal, and Industrial Lights are sort of working together. So you can see the landscape changing in this path in the AAA space, right? As for this app development area, this is where the real money, the quick money is here, but it's also sort of short-lived, and it's also being a rat race during this time. So there's a huge burst of HTML5 games during this time. So we have seen MX, MPL, Facebook Instant Games, Geo, Winzo, and this just plenty of platforms already out there. Try to tap on any of this as an opportunity, right? This is an easy trajectory for you guys to go up quickly. There's just tons of engines already out there, and at least in this space, right? At least from my experience, how I worked with MPL or the other guys, Unity seems to struggle in this new platforms because they're mostly targeted toward iOS, Android, and the AAA space, right? When you want a new custom app and you want the games to be inside, Unity might not be the best solutions for this one. There are other engines like Default, Cocos, Play Canvas, Construct, GameMaker. There's just so many out there. Try to learn multiplayer. Real-time multiplayer is the next key. And I originally wanted to talk about multiplayer and how to set up your own servers and stuff. But hopefully, the next GDC or somewhere early, I will give you another talk on multiplayer. Try to learn web tools. React is sort of a must. Try to learn some cloud tools as well with the AWS and Firebase. And if you're a full stack developer, you are going to have a blast if you're in the gaming industry during this time. Of course, full stack developers are sort of lured in every other space than games during this time. But I would say games is sort of buzzing with full stack developers, and they are a huge requirement during this time. So make sure your hard skills are topping in this area as well. Okay, so I would quickly go around with early risky tech that you would probably want to avoid. So I'll open up the floor for Q&A. I'll click on the Q&A question. Um, which software is better, Unreal or Unity? Wow.
Dude, you gotta answer that question. You gotta answer that. Like,
No, no,
you should have that
I'm
ready. You should have that ready. Like a 60-second. What should I do? Like, you should have that ready.
um, in fact, Unreal and Unity is sort of a blurred line during this time. If you're going for more casual, I'm not saying this because of I'm biased. If you're going for more casual space and casual AAA area, more on this indicator on this side, I would pick Unity. And if you're going for AAA VFX, I would probably recommend you Unreal. So that's the thing. Do what's best for your
No,
product.
in the sense that
Don't do what's best.
a lot of people would be like, okay, I want to just get a job anywhere. Like, I want to make games. So statistically, in India, what I tell people is that because Unreal is more niche, Unreal is more like AAA, a lot of indie studios use it. But if for your chances to get a job in the Indian game industry, which is quite frankly mostly mobile focused, I would
See,
say that
that's exactly what I'm saying, right? And right now, that's how the current space is right now. Not everything is about mobile. You have a huge new set of platforms that are coming up right now, at least in India, right? So at least like how our business runs is only running on in all of these platforms. We haven't even put a single game in iOS or Play Store, right? So that's a proven example that the landscape is changing very drastically at this time, right? So I mean, iOS and Play Store is going to be a thing constantly, right? But try to learn other engines as well. Unity might not be the best HTML5 engine out there. That's my take on it. So
oh, it's terrible for HTML5. I mean,
yes.
it is for HTML5. No.
Yep. So yes, Unity is still the golden standard for you to get a job, and that's like basically finishing an engineering before you go and start a restaurant, right? So here in India, like everybody finishes in engineering and then they start actually looking for their career somewhere else. That's the same case with gaming, right? Unity is sort of the ABC, right? Unity has become the golden standard for game engines. So yeah, eventually you will learn Unity whether you like it or not. So that I would say Unity, yes. Are
Awesome.
you
So
happy, Rahul?
yeah, exactly. Awesome. So we kind of running out of time. We have
Yep.
5 minutes and we have some questions. So you want
Do
to
you
go
need
through
to be
them?
do you need to be good at all type of data structures? Not really. Games only use only certain niche data structures, but it's good to know the entire data structures and be very strong in your foundation of programming. That's what I'm saying. Then so that learns how to apply them in games. Yes. Do you think programming is required for tech artist role? Yes. So when the moment you have the word tech right, like I said in the beginning of the talk, coding should be your passion by now. You should be a nerd who loves to code if you want to make inside this industry, right? At least in the tech role. So programming is yes, you need to know programming and tech artist role. You can get away if you're a shader authoring program, but still most of the programming logic still applies. Vector math still applies if you're making shaders. Even in Unreal, if you're making a shader maps, you need to know some sort of knowledge in math and some in programming even to do that. So yes, you do need to know. Do we need to do competitive programming for beginning a game programmer? Not really. I actually never went into any competitions per se. Do you need to be very competitive? Not really, as long as you can solve the problem, right? And games is a weird space because you have a lot of other disciplines merging together. So if you have better soft skills, and even if your coding skills are mediocre, right? you can still shine as long as you make a good product, right? Your code doesn't need to be the best code in the world to make a good game. That's what I'm saying. At least in Unity made that stuff made easier. Most of the Unity code guys type is pretty bad. They don't even follow any of the software design standards. So, yep, you don't need to be a very good programmer or competitive programmer. Can I find this PPT after the presentation? Yes, I think I'll post it in handouts. How do I share? I'll probably download and post it right now.
You know, there's a panel here, right here, called handouts.
Okay.
You can kind of just manage handouts, and you can kind of add it there. You can just drag and drop or click. So you can do that.
Okay. So any data structures and algorithms are nothing that comes to my mind right now because I studied data structures using Java. I'll try to find some good books. And where can I post after post this talk? I hope there's you guys can come to J2M and I'll post some links there too as well.
Yeah.
Um,
So he just tell you that I have a server which is Gamer to Maker where Josh is actually a mentor and he answers a lot of questions. So if you guys want, I can kind of post a Discord link in the chat here, and you guys can join the server. And whenever he has time, you can post questions. He comes to the server, Discord server, and he answers questions. So
yeah.
I'll post a link there, right? We have time for one more question, Josh, and
So
I would say the AI question is a good one.
okay. Okay. How would you define a full stack developer? You need a database knowledge. You need some front end like React Vue or some sort, and you need to know some back end languages, a Node.js or an Express. That would be sort of a full stack. You just need to have some knowledge over it. That's all. Any tips for an AI programmer? Um, games. Games and machine learning languages are two different things. AI has been there in games for more than ML has been around. Most of the principles do apply the same. There is no such or a dedicated job, at least in the casual space, as an AI programmer. A gameplay programmer would handle AI. You probably need to study about behavioral trees. That's all you probably need to do, at least to start with the AI during this time. Do I
Cool.
need to know? Oh man, that's a
All
lot
right,
of good
guys.
questions. I
I
do
know,
want to
I know.
answer. I'm so sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
guys.
I know. That's okay. We're out of time. So once again, guys, the last thing I will say is that please go to handouts, and in handouts you will find a link to give feedback on the stock. And please do that. It'll really help us to improve. Give us feedback, give us suggestions, and tell us how you like the talk. That would be absolutely awesome. Josh, thanks a ton, buddy. This was
Thanks, man.
absolutely great. I wish we had like 1 hour, but once again, if you guys come onto the server, you'll be able to interact with Josh a little bit more. And Josh is awesome. And thank you so much for answering all these questions, Josh. And I'll see you around.
Okay, hold on 1 minute. I'll just post it in the handouts.
Okay, I have another panel to
Okay,
moderate. So
go
I'm
ahead.
out of here. You can kind of
I'll
hang
put
out
it
with your
on
friend.
Discord and
Yeah, you can totally do
J2M.
that.
Gamer to Maker, right? That's the
Yeah,
channel. Gamer to
yeah.
Maker.
There's actually I made a channel for IGDC. It's in Korea. You can post it there in Gamer to Maker if you're there in the server.
Okay, awesome.
Right. I posted the link here. I posted the link in the thing. All right.
Awesome.
Oh,
Thanks, man. Thanks,
did
Rahul.
I? Oh man, did I actually paste the wrong link? Hang on a second. I think I posted the wrong. Okay, copied
I'll
and
also make.
Control V. All right, that's Discord, guys. Sorry, I think I posted the link to some random YouTube channel. I hope it was a decent video. I don't know what was on my clipboard. So the Discord server is here. I have to go on to the next panel.
Okay,
So I'll see you guys. Thanks a ton, Josh.
awesome, guys.